Hi, guys. I'm Heidi Kemper, psychic medium, and welcome to Scorpio Rising. I'm so excited to tell you all about my guest today. My guest, Carmie Buhalis, is somebody who came to me as a client who found me after reading the article in the local newspaper about me. For those who are local in Michigan, where I'm from, Grosse Pointe, last fall, they did an article, a feature article on me. And I was very honored. It was a full page. I thought it was going to be a couple sentences. This is Heidi. Go see her. She's in the village, her new offices. And what ended up happening was it was a full page about me, who I am. And it was super empowering to come out as a psychic medium to my community. And I really was welcomed and enveloped. And in that, I have a lot of clients that came out of that. And Carmie Buhalis is one of the clients. Carmie is the owner of Energy Alchemy. And I am so excited to welcome her to our show today. Carmie?
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, I'm so excited to have you here. And I just think it's so funny how within 5 minutes of reading for you, Spirit was like, you guys are going to be working together, just so you know. And I was like, okay, well, we're just getting started with this. So give me a minute to warm up and meet Carmie. And I don't want to scare her off too soon. So I kind of held that back and shared that at the end of the read. But your reading was super empowering. As I recall, as we've talked about, I don't always remember all of my readings just because I'm a channel. I'm a clear channel. I surrender to the divine. I become that hollow bone, and I allow the information that's going to serve your highest good to come through. And that particular day was no different. However, there was something special about you and the connection that you and I made. So I'm super excited to have you here. And if you could just explain to the audience who you are and what you do and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me here. I am a certified life coach, and I work with women, particularly in helping them to shift their mindset, breaking through limiting beliefs so that they can really step into their true potential. So, just like you said, that connection piece is huge for me. I love that part of my job, connecting with women who just feel like they were meant for more and really helping them bring that vision to life. So I was like, when I saw that article and then I got a message from my friend, I was like, the psychics are coming to Grosse Pointe. What? And it was incredible. I was like, yes, finally, because years ago, I really tapped into this space and I had some beautiful readings done. And I just thought it was so fun that we were going to have people close to home doing this for our community. And I love that you're from here. And I just like instantly felt connected to you. So, yeah, so fun.
Well, you came to my grand opening. Do you remember? You
Yep.
came to my grand opening, and it was like, it was even before I read for you because the grand opening you came to first. So it was even before. And I just remember that instant connection, that instant recognition. Now, we did go to the same high school, but you were a couple years behind me. What year did you graduate?
Yep, 97.
Okay, yeah. So you were with my brother, John. Yeah. So I was like 4 years ahead of you.
Yep.
So I think, as we know, growing up in Grosse Pointe, it's a small community. Everybody knows each other. So I think I recognized you, but I think my soul recognized you is what it was.
Same.
Yeah.
It was like I felt like I had known you forever. just from that initial meeting. And I was like, oh, I was just so excited for us to connect and you to be in the space that you're in.
Totally. So I know that you and I have talked a couple different times and kind of how you got into your spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would love to hear when your spiritual journey started and kind of a little background of how you grew up, because, you know, I think a lot of the ways we grow up has a lot to do with how we end up changing our path as we get older, whether we stay with what we were grown up with, you know, brought up with, or kind of find our own path.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I grew up in Grosse Pointe. I was the oldest out of my family. I had a brother and a sister. And, it was pretty typical suburban life. I had a great childhood, lots of fun, lots of cousins, lots of connections like in the community. And
Catholic, right? Catholic.
yeah, Catholic.
Yeah. Yep.
Catholic. So, it was like I just kind of I was a rule follower. And my parents ended up getting divorced when I was in about 8th grade. And I took on the role of like people pleaser. Like I just wanted to keep everybody together. I wanted everybody to be happy. So it really became all about everybody else at that point. So you think like 8th grade is what, like maybe 13, 14 years old.
Right. Right.
And so I'm on this path of just, like parents separated, got divorced, and it was just out of my control. And I think that was the first time that I felt that feeling. So
Right.
I showed up and I smiled and I got good grades and I was a good person, but I was getting into a lot of trouble. Like started drinking pretty early and just fell into that crowd. And so life continued on through high school, went to college at Michigan State, got my degree in education, became an elementary school teacher. And a couple years in, I was teaching and my principal came into the classroom and she said, Carmie, she said, your mom's outside. And I said, that's really strange. My mom never comes to school. And she was there. And then around the corner, I saw my boyfriend and all of my aunts, like all walking towards me at the same time.
I have
And,
chills. I have chills because I know what you're going to say.
and my mom found me and she said, Carmie, she said, your dad died. And I looked at her and I was like, I thought I was hearing her wrong because I had just talked to him the day before. He was 51 years old. And my grandpa was like 92. And like, he was the one that was at the
You were
end.
worried about. Yeah.
So I thought like I heard her wrong. And I definitely didn't hear her wrong. And, he had died by suicide. And it was the biggest shock of my life. That was the point where my life completely changed. It was like I was on this path of just doing what everybody wanted me to do, kind of checking the boxes.
Yep. Yep. I can relate.
Yeah, and then it was just like this traumatic life event that at the time I couldn't see the other side of it, right?
Right.
It was such a journey, Heidi, but shortly after my dad passed away, he was in Florida when he died. And so his body had to come back to Michigan. And when we like got his things, I just remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like they're just things. Like we care so much about the things. And like the only thing I want is for him to be here. Like that's what's really important.
Totally.
And so that was the first time that I sort of saw beyond like the material world and started to really pay attention to what was important. And also that I had a choice. My dad really struggled. He really struggled with depression all of his life. And back then, I mean, this is like 16, 17 years ago.
How old were you? How old were you when you were at Michigan State when you found out about your dad?
Well, I was actually graduated college. So I was
okay. So they came to work. They came to your work.
to work.
You were
Yeah.
working at Cool. Okay.
Uh,
Because
so
I was away at college. I was away on spring break. And so when you started to tell the story, I got chills because you don't forget that moment. You know,
never.
something is not right. You know, they picked me up from the airport. Same thing. My boyfriend picked me up and said he was surprising me, which my friend's mom was supposed to pick us up, but she was there too. And I thought, that's weird. My boyfriend's here and my friend's mom is here. And we walked out to another car and we got into it was my neighbor. And I'm like, what is my neighbor doing here? And I looked in the back and my mom and dad were in the back, and same thing. It's like, what's happening? Same thing. You know, they said, you know, your brother died in a car accident. And my first response was, well, it's gotta be wrong. Are they sure it's him? How do they know it's him? Like that denial, right? That denial comes in. And so my heart goes out to you for that, because those are the moments that change you forever. And I remember the same thing. I remember going home, laying in his bed in his bedroom and just crying my eyes out in his pillow, and looking around and thinking, none of this matters. None of this is important. I just want him. I just want him here. The people are all that matter. And I remember just that realization of what's really important in life is the people we love, and not the things, not all the other stuff that goes along with it. So I relate with you. And I feel like those of us who are spiritual, we go through these big life-changing events that change us forever.
Absolutely. And there's so many similarities in both of our stories. And
Yes.
like my heart just goes out to you because I understand the loss and the like it's not real. Heidi, I was waiting for my dad to like pull up in he used to drive a Corvette, just pull up in the driveway and be like,
Right.
what are you guys doing? You
Right.
know, and it took a really long time.
Well, and I think the piece, you know, that is different too, that is really difficult, is when the death is by suicide. I think that takes it to a whole different level. And so to have that piece of it, I feel like we've come a long way the last 16, 17 years since your dad has passed as a society, being able to talk about suicide as if, you know, it's more accepted. I think we talk about it more. It used to be really hush hush.
Right.
Sometimes people wouldn't even talk about it or acknowledge it. So I feel like we're coming a long way, but there was that part of it too, which probably made it tenfold for you.
Hard. I mean, like, and as you think, like, as a man, in the family that we grew up in, the way that we grew up, it was like, be a man, take care of your stuff. Like, you don't talk about your feelings. And guess what? If you're struggling, nobody's going to know about it. Like, it was kept a very secret. So we didn't
Right.
really know how much he struggled. And it was really hard because, like you said, there's just no closure, and you just are in your mind going, could I have done something different? What if this and all these scenarios. So there's just a lot to process after a loss, and a loss like that in that way. It was life changing.
I remember you telling me that yoga was one of the first things that you went to help you process your father's death and the grief that went along with it. So you want to talk a little bit about that, share that with the audience?
Absolutely. So, at the time, I mean, the grief just comes in waves. I would be fine, and then I would find myself on the floor, just completely destroyed, sobbing, couldn't control it. And so I went to a yoga class and I started doing yoga. And for me at that age, I mean, I'm like, late 20s, it was all about keeping my body in shape. I wasn't like tuned in at that point. And so
Right.
like laying in Shavasana, eyes closed.
My favorite pose.
Oh,
For those of you who don't
the
know,
reason why we do
Savasana
yoga.
is the end where you lay there and you just
Final resting pose, eyes closed. You're laying down, right? Everybody is laying down, eyes closed, lights off. And when the teacher brought us all back together and ended the class, I went up to her and I said, "Why were you standing over me the whole time I was in Shavasana?" And she looked at me. She said, "Carmie," she said, "I was in the back of the room." She's like, "I was nowhere near you." And so it was the first time I like felt this presence that I knew was there, but like I didn't have the tools. I couldn't understand. It actually really scared me. And it wasn't until about, I would say, close to 10 years, Heidi, after my dad passed, that I got back into yoga, that I started really tuning in. I got into meditation. I stopped drinking. I got really clear. I was learning how to deal with all of these emotions that I never dealt with before. And yoga for me was like finally that space where I felt connected to a higher power. It was like I could just get out of my mind, and eventually, like, I got interested in it so much that I went and I did yoga teacher training. So just connected with a beautiful teacher. And that really kind of blew the lid off everything. That's when everything started to change.
I love that. I have a few friends who went through the yoga training teaching, two of my friends, and it was life changing for them. And one of them took it a second time
Yeah.
because she said it was such an amazing experience. And she's like kind of a perfectionist. So it made sense. Like she kind of wanted to really nail it, but she really enjoyed the process. It's not just learning the poses. It's a spiritual experience and understanding how you're connected to the divine. And so I have a question.
Yes.
Who do you think, who do you think that was standing by you in that yoga class?
I know it was my dad. I
Yeah.
just,
I love that.
and like now, if that happened, I think I told you, I was like, if that happened now, I would be like talking to him.
You'd be opening your eyes. Hey, Dad.
What's going on? Let me tell you all the things. I'm just in such a different place, and it's been such a journey. And I think to myself, like, when it happened, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me in all of my life. That day was the worst day of my life. And his death, the way that he died, he has been like my greatest teacher. He has taught me, like, losing him the way that I did, it's taught me about what life is truly about. And it's all about love and
All about love.
reconnecting to the truth. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, we're here to remember.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So then how did you get into the life coaching and that aspect of it? How did you get into that?
So once I went through my teacher training, it was about 2017-ish. And my kids were still really little. So stay-at-home mom, trying to figure out, something to do on the side. And I started my own yoga business. So I would go into offices in Detroit and I would teach lunchtime yoga to people. And I loved it because I got to be with people who would not necessarily go into a yoga studio. Like, they were sitting behind desks. They have this kind of like bright human coming into
God,
their.
I would have loved to have had you come to the hospital in yoga because like you're just a ray of sunshine, just a bright light, and so just your presence. I don't care if you were coming in to teach yoga or I don't know, you could be teaching how to do jumping jacks, whatever, just your presence in itself. But
But it was just really cool. It was another way to like connect with people. And people did start saying to me, gosh, in the conversations that we would have, you should be a life coach. Like, you're really good at just this. And I thought that's really interesting because the training that I went through, my yoga teacher was also my life coach. And so she was using these tools throughout the training. It's like life training.
Right.
It's a lot of unlearning of the thought systems based in fear and relearning of the thought system based in love. And that comes from A Course in Miracles. And so that was a huge piece of my training. And so a mix of like, that's what reconnected me with my spirituality was A Course in Miracles. So I now say I'm a recovering Catholic.
Oh, love
Like
it.
God is here. It was the first time that I felt like God was here and not here, like outside of myself.
Totally.
Yeah. And so through the training, I'd been getting coached the entire time. And I thought to myself, you know what? Like these tools work. My life has changed significantly. I'm a like more calm person. I have less anxiety. I know what peace feels like in my body. And I was like, I'm healing. And I think maybe I would be able to do this for other people. And so, one thing led to the other. My neighbor across the street was an executive coach. And so she recommended the coaching program that I ended up going through. And I did it.
Well,
Um,
I believe in the right people, the right place, the right time. I mean, here you had somebody living across the street.
right.
What are the chances, right? I mean,
No, I know. So it was like, when the
meant to
time is
be.
right, the door opens and it was like, am I going to do this? Yes, I'm going to do it. So I went through my coach certification program. That took about a year. And I loved the program because they were like, start coaching now. They did like a 3-day intensive and it was like, we want you to start now. And that's what I did. So that was a few years ago that I started that. And I just jumped in and I used everything that I had learned up until that point to really help women. That's really what I specialize in is working with women because I feel like I can hold a space, I can create a safe space where people feel like they can come, they can be vulnerable. It's a space where there's no judgment, and it's just really kind of like a big hug. Like you're just like inside of this container that's going to keep you safe and you're going to grow into the version of yourself that you've always known you could be.
Totally, totally. I absolutely love it. And, you and I went out for lunch last week and we're kind of just chatting before the podcast just to kind of chat so that, you knew kind of what to expect. And just hearing the different things that you do with the clients and how you show up and just being in your presence. I mean, again, I think it's a soul calling and it's your presence more than anything. You can send 5 people, 5 random women to train and how to do it, but not everybody's going to have that special spark within them. And that's what you have is that special spark, that spark of inspiring people, saying things in a way that inspires them and empowers them. So I feel like, you're doing what you should be doing, at least from the outside looking in. I feel like I know what it feels like to know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Being a nurse 25 years, making this shift to wanting to do this full time. And the last year and a half has been about me stepping into what I'm supposed to do. So I know what it's like to feel like I'm living my purpose. But then when I see other people doing it, it's just a wonderful thing. I recognize it because I know what it's like. I'm being the person that's living it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's completely different. Like when I think of myself as a teacher, it was like stick the key in the door, 8 hours till I get to leave. This is just something that I do. And
right.
this space that I'm in, it's like when you get dropped into that space and I get to work with my clients, it is like time disappears. I don't know if you ever feel like that
Oh,
because I
yes.
know that I'm meant to be in this space. And
Well,
like it just feels right
and
in my heart.
present and just present, just being present. That term holding space for somebody is, I never understood it until I learned, and I'm like, it is such a valuable thing to hold space for somebody, whether it's a friend going through a hard time, whether, when clients come to me, it's like that hour that they're with me, it's holding space for them. If all I do is hold space and listen to them, then I've already done my job. If they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel recognized and appreciated for who they are, I've done my job. And that's my intention when I go. I know that I'm trying to serve that person's highest good, but I'm also holding space for them, and they are the focus. So I think that's huge. I think that's huge.
I mean, that is your gift and that is your unique brilliance, because that's what I felt instantly when I stepped into your space and your presence. I just felt held, and the reading, like it was like there's just a lot going on up here when you go in for a reading. And
Mm-hmm.
instantly I just felt like, ooh, she's got me. And I
Right.
can exhale. I can relax. And
Right.
you do an amazing job of that.
Well, thank you. And so do you. And I
Yeah.
honor the light in you.
Same.
I,
Same.
I appreciate you and how you show up. I really do.
Yeah.
Um, so hold on one second. My phone is doing a weird thing. Sorry, somebody's trying to call me. Okay. Um, so I would love to, if say I wanted to sign up for some services
Sure.
with you, and as you know, I'm going through a lot of major life changes right now. We kind of touched on that at our lunch. And so I know I would love to have you as my life coach. So what would that look like? How would do you meet on Zoom? Do you meet in person? How often do you meet? What does that look like? And then can you kind of talk about what you work on with them? Because what I found fascinating is when you said it's really identifying their self-limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can just kind of talk about what that looks like and then touch on that topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I get clients started, it starts with like a right fit call. So there's usually some sort of call where we're talking about the things. And if it's a good match, we're a go, we're going to get started. It looks like this. I ask for a 3-month minimum from my clients to start. I feel like you have to give it at least that much time to be.
Yeah.
Yep. And so what that entails is we would meet on Zoom, every other week for about 3 months. And our sessions are, I'm going to say about 90 minutes. Most of my sessions run about 90 minutes. And
I'm going
so
to grab my dog. Sorry.
that's all right.
Come here, baby. Come here, honey. She just got back from a walk, so she's a little short of breath. Sorry. This is Molly. Molly, say hi.
Hi, Molly. Oh, she's so cute. Oh my God, I love her.
So anyhow, so Zoom every other week.
Zoom every other week. I send you calendar invites and we show up in this virtual space and we really start to, one, we have to create the container. So
I love that.
Yep. You and I would both, there are some agreements that both you and I would agree to. The safe container is created in that first session. It's a lot of getting to know each other. And then from there, we blast off. So it's really about igniting your vision. Like, what are you called to create? What do you feel that you're really deeply yearning for, right? And a lot of my sessions have guided visualizations. We will start with a grounding exercise to get you dropped in. From
meditation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then from that space, I just feel like it allows people's hearts to really open in a way that isn't really allowed out in the world.
Yes. Almost like, when we meditate, it's about tuning in, grounding yourself, and then letting that ego step to the side. Because let's face it, that's what really holds us back in a lot of parts of our life is our egos.
It really is. It's that voice it's telling you all of the limits. Yeah, yeah. And so from there, then we start to identify those limiting beliefs that we talked about. The top 3 are I'm not enough, I'm alone, I'm invisible. And so many of us as women carry these stories. And the good thing about them is that they are not true. We've believed them for a really long time. But I feel like in this space, when you can actually name what's been going on for you, like that thing that keeps happening over and over and over again, when you name it, you bring power to it. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I can see is like this invisible glass ceiling that I've been bumping up against over and over again. And in the space, in that coaching container, we're identifying that story. What is
Right.
it? What does it look like? How does it show up for you? And the best part is then you get to witness yourself doing those things. And you're like, I can see how I've been creating this for myself. So there's some responsibility that's taken here on the client's part.
Right.
You
Because
know,
it's about changing your thoughts,
mhm,
how you self-talk to yourself.
absolutely.
Um, and I think a lot of it, comes from our parents, our teachers, the adults who, said different things to us, as we were growing up, and helped place those. But then society, society and well-meaning people not even realizing that something they say just flippantly, offhandedly, around the dinner table is something that we're going to hold on to, and later on be like, well, this is true, and it's like, no, it isn't. That's a story.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is you said there's like 22 story. Like, is that what you had said in our meeting? Like something like 22 stories that you've been able to actually identify that people tell themselves?
Yeah. So I am studying under a teacher. Her name is Claire Zammit. And she's identified 21 stories specific to women that we tell ourselves that are these limiting beliefs, that are these stories. It's like, I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm invisible. And let me tell you, I have so many of them. And I know
Yeah.
I'm not alone. I know.
Right.
I'm not. So if I'm able to share this work with the women in my life that kind of come into this space, it's a beautiful exercise in just sort of breaking free. It's like we felt like we've been held down for so long, some of us, but we can't really understand why. And then all of a sudden, you have the language to really name what's been going on. And the best part is, we get to change the story.
Right. We
So once you
rewrite it. We
identify,
change it.
yeah, because once you're aware of it, you can't be unaware of it. That's kind of the rub.
Exactly. Right. You
You
don't know
can't go
until you
back to
know
unknowing.
sometimes. You don't even realize that, oh
Yeah.
gosh, I've been holding myself back all this time by
Right.
these stories that I've told myself
Yeah.
that
I
aren't
mean,
true.
like Taylor Swift says, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. When that song came out, I just died because I was like, this is so true.
Yes.
And we're just human. It's okay. It's okay because we
Right.
choose differently. And that's the part of the coaching that I really love getting into is like creating this new story and then creating a growth pathway for you to really launch yourself into whatever it is you desire, whatever your vision is, whatever your purpose is, to do it with passion and to feel fulfilled and empowered and really just step into this space where you feel like the best version of yourself. And I thought it was a mouse, but we saw what it was, and it was a frog or a toad. And
Uh-huh.
so we went into the house and we're sitting down to dinner and we're telling our story about getting scared by the fence. And one of the yoga instructors looks at me and she says, "You saw the toad?" I was like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? Because Michelle, the yoga teacher, she's just this beautiful, like one with the earth spirit. She lost her leg in a motorcycle accident, like a scooter accident. She lives in Italy. And she's one of the happiest people that I've ever met in my life. Like there's something going on with this chick, the yoga, she is into a lot of other things. So when she says, "You saw the toad," I was like, oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? Well, the year before, she met this man, and he's a medicine man. And he took her through a medicine ceremony with what they called was Bufo alvarez. And so you've probably heard of it as toad venom. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, like at this point, I had been sober for a number of years. I've never taken a psychedelic. If I ever smoked pot, it was like please let me survive. So this was not in my wheelhouse of things that I'm comfortable with at all.
Right, 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 right.
I had thought of doing ayahuasca. Like I was like, ooh, I might want to try that. But this sort of fell in my lap and I didn't know anything about it. And I knew that it was used for healing addiction and trauma. I just got full body goosebumps. And the way that it came in.
Oh, I just got them too.
Yeah.
Okay, that means something. So we'll have to talk about that after. We both got that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, Heidi, what I can tell you is that I had complete trust. I trusted the people that I was with, and I trusted that this was something that I needed to do. And so I didn't really ask any questions. This was not part of the training. It was just something that was like, if you want, you can do this. And so I was like, I think I want to do this. And I didn't think too much about it because I didn't want to get into that ego part of my mind, right?
Right.
Like the Carmie that shows up is like, the one that does everything by the book and is very close-minded. And we're just, here to do the yoga poses.
Right. Right.
Well, I was feeling very called to participate in the ceremony. So
one of those things you just know. When you know, you know.
yeah, I just knew.
All the internal guidance. Yep.
I trusted, and we had been doing a lot of work around trust. I trusted that the universe was good. I trusted that people were good. And I trusted that this was happening for a reason. So we went to the beach first thing in the morning. It was kind of like being on a movie. Like I was like, is this real life? Is this really happening? And I was pretty nervous. So like, even though I trusted, I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, I would be too. Not knowing what to expect.
Not knowing what to expect, right? So go and I'm with the medicine man. His name's Kuhn, and he's going to take me through this ceremony. So you basically, the toad venom is like, they get the venom from the toad. It's secreted onto like a piece of glass. It dries and then they kind of scrape it and they put it into like a bowl and you smoke it. So you're inhaling the medicine.
Right.
So he's taking me through this breathing practice. He's telling me, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then he's like, breathe in and hold for eternity. And like, I'll never forget the sound of his voice. And I'm looking out at the ocean. And then all of a sudden, I'm out of my body. Like I have become the air. That's the only way that I can describe to you what happened to me. So like physically, my body was laying on a beach. I think what happened was like my spirit left. Like I got to be out of my body.
Astral traveled. Yep. Yep.
So it was like I was everything and nothing all at once. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And then in my mind, what I'm seeing is I'm standing in the ocean. And mind you, like my body is laying on the beach. So in my mind, I'm standing in the ocean. The water's like up to my ankles. And just like an arm's length away from me is my dad on his boat.
And your dad at this time was in spirit.
Absolutely. It had been a good 10, maybe 12 years since he'd passed.
Wow. That must have been an amazing feeling.
It was like I went through all of the emotions. So the first emotion that I felt was very sad. It was like that sadness that was still there. Like I missed him so much. And I felt the heaviness of that. And it didn't stay long. Then all of a sudden, I had this knowing that I was like, wait, he's never been gone. Like he's always been right here. I've never existed without him.
Yeah.
And I'm so like, I can't explain to you in words the experience that I had. But it was just everything that I had been studying with A Course in Miracles and Only Love is Real. It was like I was experiencing those teachings in this moment. And what I got to experience was we're all one. Like I had read that so many times and I tried to like think my way through that. And I was like, I don't understand that. In this space, I got to feel it. And it was like the truth with a capital T.
Wow. So
And
everything kind of at that moment just.
it was like, it was peace. Like I felt peace around his death, about around him not physically being here. And I realized like I'd never been without him, nor will I ever. Like we are connected for eternity.
Right.
He looked at me and he was like, I'm good. I'm good. And he's like, and you're here. And your life is beautiful. Like, live it. Live it. Like, stop worrying about me. I'm good. And I felt peace in my bones.
Beautiful.
It was
Just beautiful.
just beautiful. And like with that, it was like, I just was like, okay. And, I wasn't speaking, but I was feeling all of this happening.
Yes. Yes.
And I just,
Telepathical communication. Yeah.
yeah. And then I just watched his boat kind of just go. And it wasn't like, no, stay, come back. There was none of that. It was like just perfect peace. And then my ego started to kick in. Like I started to not like, as the medicine kind of works through you, there's a point where you can fully let go. And I was at the point where I wasn't really able to do that. So in my mind, I started to hear, this isn't real. This isn't real. You breathe through this. You will survive this. Like, just keep breathing. It's not real. And I started to get a little bit scared.
Yeah.
And then I heard this
That
voice.
ego will hold on. That ego will hold
It will
on.
tell you all of the things, right? It's what really keeps us back.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, I heard this voice come in and it said, you deserve to feel this much love. And I literally trusted that and like exhaled and let go completely and just sort of melted like into the earth. And in that moment, I think the way that I describe it is like I became pure love. Like that
Love
is
it.
the energy that creates this universe that we see with our physical eyes. And I became that.
Beautiful.
It's just such a beautiful experience. I felt that for quite some time. And then like everything went white. And I heard sort of like Kuhn kind of calling, and he was chanting the whole time. Like I could hear these chants. I have no idea what language it's in, but it just felt like home. Like all
Right.
of it just felt like coming home.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he's got like this big smile and these big teeth, beautiful human. And he's like right in my face and he's like, beautiful work, sister. Welcome back. Welcome back. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa.
Wow.
And it took me a little while to like realize that like I was back. But I love the end of this because I'd always been afraid of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I was always bumping up against the waves, like always like trying to like resist. Like I was like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know how to swim in the ocean. And
Right.
Michelle was there, my yoga teacher, and she's like, go jump in the ocean, go jump in the ocean. And I just ran right into the ocean and I dove right in.
No fear. Ready to go.
The fear was gone. It was like, you're just going to go with the flow of life. And it literally was like somebody took my glasses off, cleaned them off, and I got to see for the first time the world as like God would have us see it. And
Wow.
the beauty of, just the miracles around us, like the plants and the trees and the sky and the things that we take for granted.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we could do that? Like if every person could experience that. Like think back to when we lived in tribal times. There are parts of the world that still live in tribe and have medicine men, right? Medicine women. But can you imagine if we went back to that and we all experienced that? Or take it another step. Say we utilized that type of plant medicine with people who are in prison doing time for crimes, hate crimes or violent crimes. Can you imagine how that could change so many people's lives? Like, it makes you think, gosh, I would love if we could start embracing that more and sharing more of that, because we are all forgetting who we are and why we're here. And I think us light workers, that's part of our job. But can you imagine how that would aid us in doing that more? One of the things when you spoke of that feeling of love, that complete love, I've had that moment happen 4 times in my life. And 2 of the times were when I had my children. The first time I held my son and the first time I held my daughter, that complete, absolute love, like just nothing could go wrong. Like everything was perfect in that moment.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 times were a dream I had. I was at Kroger's in line in the dream, and Jesus was in front of me.
Wow.
And he needed to run back to the aisle to get something. And he's like, oh, I forgot something. Can I get by? And I'm like, oh, sure. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus, it's you. And he's like, yes. And he hugged me. And again, complete, pure, absolute love. And then the 4th time was, I was pregnant with my daughter. We had lost a daughter between our son and daughter. And so her pregnancy, there was a lot of anxiety and worry. And I remember going to bed one night, really worried that something was going to go wrong. And I had a dream about Mary, Jesus's mother. And I was out of my body. I was standing at the foot of my bed, looking at myself in the bed, and Mary was spooning me. And she looked just like Mary in her blue and white, and she was hugging me and she was like holding me, like, and just her presence, just that complete love. So when you explain that, it's like, okay, I felt that a few times in my life, and what an honor to feel that way, and what a gift to feel that way. And it takes you back to what's really important, and love.
Love. And not in the way that most people think about that word. It's like, what grows an acorn into an oak tree, right? It's like that energy of life.
Yep.
And it was such a gift. It was such a gift. Like, I can't imagine having an experience like that and being able to come back to the world and see through the old eyes.
Right. Right.
And you feel like, like I told you, when I came back, a week later, the school shut down and we were in full-on lockdown for COVID.
Right.
And so I had just had this experience, and there was so much fear everywhere, and I just didn't have it.
Right.
Compassion for all of the people that had all of the fear. But the space that I was in, I just trusted. I was like, there's a level of trust here that I have that, like, if this was meant to happen to me, I guess it's meant to happen to me. I just wasn't scared. And I think that experience really allows me in the work that I do to hold the space for people.
Totally. Totally. And that's what we're here for.
Yep. Yep. And I think it was just a great gift. Like, people ask me all the time, they're like, would you do it again? It was such a beautiful experience that I don't know that I would do it again.
Right. Because what if it's not as great? What if it's not as great? What if,
More expectations the first time. I didn't know anything about it. Right.
Right.
But,
right.
To your point, like, these practices, these old ways, this was originally how people dealt with the hardships of life. You can only push down so much, right? You can only medicate so much. And there's a time and place for it all. But, like, all of these healing modalities are available to us. And I do believe that we're in the space now where we're much more open to it than we used to be. And I also, like we spoke about, I think you need to have some practices in place to be able to have this sort of experience. I don't think it's for everybody. You couldn't just be like, here, do this, and then you're healed.
No.
You've got
There's
to
work you got to do before and work you got to do after. It's not just like, okay, we're going to have you come in this room, do this thing, and you're going to be great. No, I mean, yeah, for sure.
Right. And that's the society that we live in. It's like, just fix it. Like, I just want it fixed right now.
Right.
It's like, there's a lot of work that goes into the before and the after. So the whole experience was beautiful. And like, what a gift. I'm so grateful that I was shown that. And now, like, the relationship with my dad, it's just so different. It's so light.
Yeah.
There's not that sense of loss anymore. It's like, he's here.
Right.
To me in my dreams. We chat. Like,
I love that.
It's beautiful. Do I miss him still? Yeah, heck yeah, I miss him.
Right.
But I know
it's a different understanding. Right. It's just in the next room. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I used to hear people say that and I was like, what are you talking about?
Right. And it might even kind of make maybe some people not happy when you say that kind of thing. But I think when we have hope, when we find hope, when we find something that encourages us to move on, that we need to share that with other people.
Absolutely.
So that we can use our experiences and our hope and peace and to share that with other people to help them through their journey.
It's so true. It was like, I was gifted all of these things and these beautiful teachers came into my life and these experiences that helped me heal. And it's like, I want to return the favor. Like, I want to be in the space where I can help somebody kind of come through, and just feel more at ease, more peace. Like, life happens so fast. And if there are ways that we can help each other through, I just believe in being of service in that way. So
yeah. And we talked about this the other day, and I think for a matter of time we'll start wrapping things up. But I think, right now there is a lot of changes going on in the world. Most particularly, with politics and wars. It's not just the United States. It's all over the world. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to show up and to hold that space, to be the light. But in order to be able to show up for other people, we have to take care of ourselves too. So while we're doing that inner work, finding the support that we need, finding the resources that we need. And, life coaching is something that doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual, but with you it is. And I think that is the key. I think that is the key to really making the magic happen. You can go give somebody the recipe and this is how you're supposed to do it. But if you give them the tools that they need with that spiritual understanding and looking at them and approaching it with the point of empowering that person and reminding that person that they are loved, that they deserve happiness, that holding them in that space is what it makes you different. It makes your practice different. Mm-hmm. So if people wanted to get a hold of you or are interested in your services or doing a consultation, how do they get a hold of you?
So you can go to my website. That's probably the easiest way. It is theenergyalchemist.net. And then you can, I'm sure something will pop up on the screen and you can email me. I'm also on Instagram at Carmie Buhalis. Just my first and last name. You can always message me on there, but all of my information is on my website. So that would be the best place to connect with me.
Love that. Love that. And, like I said, I'm serious when I say I want to work with you. So let's do it. I've been doing a lot of self reflection and going through a lot of life changes. And with that, I've identified a lot of things, but I think having somebody on my side like you is something that would really benefit me. So we'll talk.
I would be honored. I would absolutely be honored. And it's so important, Heidi. Like, you cannot become yourself by yourself. That is like one of the teachings that I've been hearing. And it's so true. All of us need somebody else to sort of reflect back to us what we can't see, right? And to see bigger possibilities in us that we also can't see. That's a piece that I just absolutely love. So I would be honored. And yeah, anybody that has any questions, please feel free to contact me, reach out. It has been an absolute pleasure sitting, chatting with you. I could talk to you for another 6 hours.
Well, we'll be talking more soon since we're going to be working
Can't
together.
wait. Can't wait.
Getting me figured out and ready to go. So, well, thank you so much. Sending you a big, big virtual hug. And I will let you go, but thanks again for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Scorpio Rising. Bye.